And Christian influencer is who you are. It's not what you profess. So
Mm.
in a space of influencers, I want to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's super interesting, especially in the space of like Christian influencers, because I believe like in the creator economy of bloggers or, fashion, fitness, the Christian influencer has become actually the newest one. And I think COVID really created that because people couldn't necessarily go to church. So they started, sharing their faith on social media. And even for me, when I started, I was sharing my faith under my name on TikTok because I didn't know what it was going to be. But then I kind of sat there and thought, well, what is this about? What can I make this about that just really like points to him and not me?
Mm.
Even though God obviously needs to
Yeah,
use
yeah.
us as vessels to, share his name. I wanted to create something that kind of stood for, what I was doing. So I changed my name on all the platforms. I think TikTok, I couldn't change my name, but it was lit with prayer. So I wanted to like exemplify, if someone's coming to my page, it's for this reason. It's for prayer, it's for faith, it's for hope, and it's for encouragement. I don't want to be like, you're coming for me and this is what and this is what I believe. It was like, no, I want to do this one thing for you, which is pray for you. And even from like the business landscape too, like I never thought it was going to turn into any type of business for myself. For me, it was more, I just want to share my faith. Like I'm enjoying this and, God's opening up great doors of opportunity to reach people. And that was a huge revelation for myself too. Just like what we were talking about before, it's like in Revelation, it says we're overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the power of our testimony. And everyone's testimony looks a little bit different. And then being able to see all of these people who are sharing their faith who look completely different, it's like, yeah, because God uses each and every one of us to reach people. I didn't think he was going to be able to help me reach people, get back into church or get saved, even through a message of prayer. So when I thought about that more, it's like, you need to keep the main thing, the main thing. And if something else comes that gives you an opportunity to do something like monetize it, then you can think about that. But can I keep this at the center of everything I do? And I think for me too, it was when people were reaching out and said, hey, how can I support you? And then I was like, oh, I don't know. And then I decided to like write a devotional. So it was still in line with what I was doing because I said, hey, if I'm going to create anything and provide it to my audience in exchange for money, let me do something that helps them still continue to grow in their faith. So that's kind of why I decided to create things like we have a small store. I still don't even think of it as like a business, but I know in order for God to continue to keep using me and put me in a position, I need to have some resources to do that. So I started writing books and, having devotionals or even creating like jewelry that is centered around Bible verses or scriptures to keep people understanding that, yeah, you're supporting me, but this thing that you're buying or, supporting me with is also like helping you remember, like keep the main thing, whether it's a Bible verse, whether it's a prayer or anything like that. So I always like remember that. I've really not, moved out of, oh, now that I have all these people, let's start talking about this or let's start talking about that. Cause I'll constantly ask God, like, is this what you want me to do? And he's like, yes, just keep doing what I've called you to do. It's not about this. It's not about that. You stay in this lane and he keeps bringing, more people for us to reach. And that's really what it's about. But I definitely see that being difficult because a lot of Christian influencers left doing it because a lot of them were young. And it kind of brings me back to what I heard you say, which was super powerful, was God has to establish your character before he establishes your platform. And with the rise of TikTok, there were 16, 17, 18-year-olds starting to share their faith who got hundreds of thousands of followers. And then kind of after COVID and the pandemic, they all left. They stopped doing it. And I just wonder, it's like, were they doing it just because it was attention at the time and they had the time to do it? Or was it really about, sharing their faith and pointing back to Jesus? So I thought that was really interesting. And you've seen the ones who've stayed. A lot of us were a little bit older and had walked with the Lord a little bit longer, but it's been interesting to see that because I think fame or followers can kind of corrupt you too, to be like, okay, let me idolize. Now I'm an idol in someone else's eyes. And you have to be, your faith is so important during those times to be like, well, what is this truly about? And that's what I've had to constantly come back to, because there's still ups and downs too with dealing with so many people reaching out to you. You know, you want to pour into everyone, but you have to be filled first before you can keep doing that, you know?
Pouring out emptiness is a real thing. Like you can only pour out what you're filled with. Like I think about Saul, right? Like he was totally different. Like you change. Solomon, like all these kings, they change. Like David, right? Like, and then Bathsheba, he falls to Bathsheba. So like you change. I think we change over time, and we get really, really comfortable with just people looking at us, and we forget, like you said, to make the main thing the main thing. And like, yeah, like okay, like I'm partnering with the Lord, but without Him, I wouldn't be able to do this. Like He could do it no matter what, but without Him. Right. In Him, I live, I move, and I have my being. And I think that that's one of the things that really stopped me from walking away from church, period. Knowing that in Him, I live, move, and I have my being. If I'm going to partner with Him and listen to Him, I'm going to have to keep going the path that He's saying to go. Because if not, I'll veer off and I'll be somewhere else. Like, you know what I mean? So it's dope to see like the longevity. Like I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And it's dope to see that things grow, right? Like when you first started, I'm going to give somebody something, then you start the devotionals, you start the jewelry, you start these things. And I think anytime we're pointing the way to Jesus, like He finds that very admirable, you know? So
I think one of the biggest lessons I had to learn in this journey was when, you know, God was really revealing to me, I want you to step away from because I had a career at the same time in tech that He was blessing, and I was doing this at the same time. But then I got to that fork in the road where I was spending so much time sharing my faith. And He was asking me like, well, you can make a decision. You can step away. You just got to trust me. And in like that first year of stepping away from that career and that security was really hard, because I wasn't necessarily seeing the fruit in the forms of the income. So that old mindset I have about like security and money that my job was providing, I didn't see that. And I was like, I was running and chasing and trying to like, how's this going to work? And like God just really revealed to me, He's like, you need to stop like chasing stuff. You need to stop like trying to get somewhere. It's like, just walk with me, walk this out with me. You need to surrender the control that you always had kind of in your job, give that control to me, and because like He needed me to develop more of my trust in Him when I was stepping into this, you know, realm that was a lot different to me. And what was funny is like towards the end of that year is when like more of that fruit came in the form of finances to help support what I was doing in my business ministry. But I wasn't focused on it towards the end, because I got to that point in my character to be like, all right, you got this. This is what you want me to do. Let me stop focusing on it. The moment I really stopped focusing on it, that fruit came. And I was like, okay, that's what you wanted me to learn. That's what was next in this season for me to keep going.